Hey everyone, welcome to Sleeping with the Numbers DFS lineup construction. We're going to be doing three lineups here for the Millionaire Maker, so you can use this in any tournament, GPP type lineup you want to do. It doesn't have to be the Millionaire Maker. This will work in any of them, but it is meant for a tournament type contest. So let's just kick it off. Going right into the quarterback position, there's a few guys that I've kind of been looking at here. It's really tempting to go Josh Allen here, pay up at $8,100. Great matchup. He's Josh Allen. He rushes the ball. He can now pass the ball very efficiently. But I want to spread my money out here. So I'm gonna make a few lineups here, but my first one here, I'm gonna do a Tampa Bay stack, and as you can see here, the opponent rank against the quarterback is third in terms of fantasy points. So that is, of course, a tough matchup for Tom Brady, but at the same time, it's Tom Brady, and what I'm really expecting in this game is for Winston to have to keep throwing the ball, and whether that means to Alvin Kamara or if he tries to force feed the ball to his quote unquote wide receivers he has, I think what I'm expecting in this game is for Jameis to kind of turn over the ball quite a bit. I know Tampa Bay's defense has not been scary at all. I know when people hear the name that they get fearful of it, but their defense hasn't been anything fantastic. But it doesn't matter. It's Jameis Winston. He throws picks. That's what he does. So I expect a lot of opportunities here to come on the offensive side of Tampa Bay because they're going to be getting the ball quite a bit and they're going to hold on to it and be able to score and move efficiently. So I'm going to go with Tom Brady here. I think, again, the matchup's scary, but I think that will stray people away from him and maybe get the ownership a bit lower. And then that way, if he does go off, we're one of the few getting those points. So taking Tom Brady here in this matchup. And then, of course, we always want to stack. And there's two guys we can choose here, or we could choose both of them. So Chris Godwin is one, and then Mike Evans is the other. I'm going to go for the cheaper guy, $6,400 for Chris Godwin. Mike Evans is at $7,000. Antonio Brown not expected to be playing. I'm actually pretty sure he's already rolled out. And what we saw because of that is a lot of the target share going to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, to be fair. So last week, without AB in the lineup, Chris Godwin got a 28.21% target share. Mike Evans got a 25.64% target share. Both had a fantastic game. Evans got the touchdowns, but Godwin was more of the PPR type guy, as we can see here. 111 yards on 8 receptions, 11 targets, and he also got a touchdown. So given it is a full point PPR format, I'm going to take the guy getting these large amount of targets. Again, Evans is also getting the targets, but $600 cheaper. I'm going Chris Godwin. I'm then going to go for a secondary stack. And if you don't know what a secondary stack is, that is when you choose players from a second game. So you've probably heard of the Bring It Back stack, which is where if I played like an Alvin Kamara or someone on New Orleans that Tampa Bay is taking on. But a secondary stack is when you choose a completely unrelated game, but you pick two players from that game. And actually, in my case, for this lineup at least, I'm going to be picking three players from a secondary game. So that first player here is going to be Michael Carter, and I know people might be kind of rolling their eyes here, but there's no one else on this team. Michael Carter should get a ton of opportunities, and he's a bunch of snaps. And then a crazy stat that I saw here, let me find it, is in week 7. Michael Carter got 21.95% of the targets for the New York Jets, which is insane. So that's a large amount of targets for the running back position. Now, again, that is without Zach Wilson, and it's going to be Mike White here at quarterback, so not exactly sure what he's going to do. But what we kind of see with backup or rookie quarterbacks is that they tend to go to the easy outlet, the easy safety valve. And that is usually a pass-catching running back or a tight end is kind of what we've seen here in the past. Also, like the slot wide receivers seem to be good. Now, maybe they're not getting a ton of yards, but every reception is a full point on DraftKings. So that's what we want to see here. And given that they're playing Cincinnati, who has been on fire, scoring a ton of points, they're going to have to be passing the ball. And if they're dumping it down to Michael Carter, I want him in my lineup. He's super cheap at $4,900. I think that's a great value pick. So like I said, I'm going to be stacking 3 people from this one. I'm going to be taking both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins here. I'm not sure why it separated them like this, but either way, taking the Cincinnati wide receivers just because they've been on fire. Higgins is actually getting more targets than Jamar Chase. So last week, Higgins got 15 targets. Jamar Chase got 10. Both in an insane amount of targets. 41.7% for Higgins and 27.8% for Chase. And I'll keep saying it. Full point PPR, you want those opportunities, and they're going to get them here. And then you can see here that it's kind of misleading. It says that the Jets are third best against fantasy points for the wide receiver position. Now, let's think about that for a second. They're not a good team. They don't need to be giving up a ton of points to the wide receiver position because they get scored on like crazy, and then the teams they're playing just run the ball and run out the clock. So that's why that's somewhat misleading. So I'm not worried about that whatsoever. I think both Chase and Higgins are going to have a great game. Honestly, I wouldn't mind doing a double stuff stack with Joe Burrow here, but I am going to stick with Tom Brady. That's just kind of how the salary ended up working out. And then for my second running back, I am going to be taking Chuba Hubbard. He hasn't been Christian McCaffrey is what we can say here, but he hasn't been terrible. He's straight up the only running back they have. Sadly, his target share has been going down in the past 3 weeks. In week 5, he was getting 17.7, week 6, 7.7, and then last week, 13.2. So slightly came up there. But last week was a terrible loss for Carolina. I'm completely done betting on them, but for DFS, I'm willing to take the shot on Chuba. He's going to have a lot of opportunities. Like I said, he's the only running back in the game. And I think a big reason that he didn't do so well last week was because they were getting blown out. And if you're getting blown out, usually the running back doesn't get a ton of work. So I expect a bounce back game from both him and Darnold against Atlanta, who is allowing the 7th most points to the running back position. So Atlanta, not a scary defense at all. I will gladly take Chuba here in this lineup. And then for my tight end, I'm going deep in the well here. It's a super cheap guy, Dan Arnold for Jacksonville. They traded for him, and if you're trading for a guy, you're going to want him to play. He has a pretty good matchup against Seattle. Seattle allowing 13.37 points to the tight end position. Again, really, this comes down to salary. He's $2,800. Maybe the ownership is a little higher because he's so cheap and people want to take him, but that's okay. I'd rather spend my money elsewhere. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I don't generally like to spend up at the tight end position. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to go with Dan Arnold. And then for my final skill position, I am going with Darrell Henderson Jr. I've talked about him I think the past few weeks. His price seems to stay relatively static. The past 3 weeks he was $5,900, had a good game, only went up $100 to $6,000. Then they bumped him up $6,600 against Detroit. Didn't have to do much against Detroit there, so he only got 9.4 points. This week his price goes down to $6,500, and as you can imagine, against Houston, he should have a lot of opportunities here. Houston giving up the 9th most fantasy points to the running back position. I expect the Rams to put it up early against Houston and then just run out the clock. And hopefully that doesn't mean Sony comes in, but if it does, a little bit of a timeshare won't kill you. But Darrell Henderson, I think his ceiling's pretty high, so I'm going to take him here at my flex position. And to finish it out, I am going to spend the rest of my money on the Bills defense. Miami isn't scary at all. I know Tua somehow ended up as like the quarterback one last week, but defensive matchup, this one could end up being one of those slugfest divisional chess games where it's just super low scoring. And if that's the case, that's good for the Bills defense. And the Bills defense is good to begin with. And if we can look at this here, Miami giving up the 6th most fantasy points to the defensive position. So I'll spend up a little bit there on defense at 3,300. But that's going to be my first millionaire maker lineup. Brady, Carter, Chuba, Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, T. Higgins, Dan Arnold, Darrell Henderson, and then the Bills defense. All right, for this next lineup, we're going to actually do a Philadelphia Eagles stack. So I'm going to take Jalen Hurts here. And Jalen Hurts, not a great real-life quarterback, but fantasy-wise, he's great. He's great for what he can put up with the rush yards and everything. So last 3 weeks, he's put up 24.5, 26, 23.9, and his salary has not really changed all that much. And a lot of this can come from his rushing attempts. So he's gotten 13, 10, 9 in the past 3 games and 4 touchdowns over those same 3 games. So he has good opportunities. He puts up a ton of air yards as well. He put up 416 air yards last week. Now, whether or not the receivers come up with them is a different question, but I think that should change here against Detroit. I honestly made a bet for Detroit to win this game. I just think the value is there, and if Detroit's ever going to win a game this season, I think Philadelphia is the team to do it. But I don't really care if they win or lose. I'm looking for a good fantasy day from Jalen Hurts. So I'm going to pop him in here at my quarterback position. And then to stack him, I'm actually going to stay away from his wide receivers because I don't really like how it goes with them. So I'm going to end up going to the new number 1 here in Philadelphia at the tight end position with Zach Ertz leaving in Dallas Goedert. So last week, he put up 12 points without Ertz. So I expect that to continue, $4,700, easy lock-in. I'm then going to put in another running back that we already talked about. He's very cheap and should see the ball quite a bit, and that is Michael Carter. Don't need to really talk about him any more than we did. Just a cheap option to get some money to spend elsewhere. Another damn solid value play, I think, is Elijah Mitchell. $5,400, San Francisco running back. Now, as with any San Francisco running back, you just hope they don't fall over and get hurt. But last week against the Colts, who, again, I think have a pretty good defense overall, but he ended up with 19.7 points, 18 attempts. That's key there. Over 100 rush yards and a touchdown. So he had a good game. If he's expected to be the lead guy yet again. So if that is the case, I will take him against the Chicago defense. Yes, they're a pretty good defense, but I care about the opportunities here. Now, the other worry here with Elijah Mitchell is he isn't really much of a pass catcher. He got 0 targets last week. They didn't play week 6, and then only 2 targets in week 5. So most of that passing down work is going to JaMychal Hasty. And of course, Debo. Debo is really the only pass catcher you want on this team. But in terms of opportunity, goal line work, I see Elijah as the guy. So I'm going to pop him in here at $5,400 to see what he can do. I think he has a decently high ceiling, and that's what I'm going for here. Moving to the wide receiver position, I'm going to take someone who's projected to be pretty low owned. And again, with low owned players, if they are scoring, you're getting the points, and 95% of the others aren't, depending on how much the ownership ends up being. But I'm going to take Laviska Shenault coming off the bye here. Ever since DJ Chark kind of went down, it's been a question of who's the number 1. Is it Marvin Jones? Is it Laviska Shenault? And it still kind of remains to be seen, but they were on the bye last week, and the week before that, they had the exact same number of targets. Each of them had 10. Now, what did that turn into? Well, let's find out. 11.4 points, 6 receptions. That's for $4,700 or $4,900 in this case. That's a decent floor. In full point PPR, 6 receptions is a decent floor. You really cannot be mad about that when you're paying so little for a possible wide receiver 1 for a team. And then with, Trevor Lawrence under center, team as a whole not being great, but they pass a lot. So Trevor is throwing 36 times a game. That's a great opportunity for these wide receivers here. So I'm going to stick my hand in that pot. I don't think Seattle's really that scary. They're kind of middle of the pack against fantasy wide receivers. 36.13 points allowed a game. They're playing good, but in order to keep it competitive, Jacksonville is going to need to pass it. I also have a bet that Jacksonville wins this game, so I'm kind of rooting for that. But again, we don't really care who wins or loses. Give us fantasy points. And then again, talked about him in the last lineup. I want Chris Godwin. Even without Brady for this stack, I still think his floor, ceiling, both are very high. He's probably the PPR guy there without AB. A lot of opportunities here. I'm excited for him. And then our final wide receiver, I'm going to go DJ Moore. So like we kind of said last week, very disappointing for the Carolina Panthers, but I do expect a bounce back here. And in order for a bounce back to happen, DJ Moore needs to be involved. So again, if we're looking at the target share, DJ Moore in the past 3 weeks, 26.3%, 33.3%, 20.6%. So he's getting a lot of targets thrown his way. And while I have the numbers here, looking at with Robbie Anderson, he's been super disappointing this year. He is not very far behind in terms of targets for this team. So let's just read back the past 3 weeks. DJ Moore got 10, Robbie got 9, DJ 13, Robbie 11, and both of them had 7 targets in week 5. But as we know, Robbie isn't doing dirt with them. So I'm going to take DJ Moore here. I think 72 is a decent value for a wide receiver 1, and Atlanta is giving up the 7th most points to fantasy wide receivers. I think they get it right this game. They are underdogs, so hopefully that means quite a bit more passing. And after that benching last week, I think Darnold got a swift kick in the ass, and hopefully that makes him play a bit better. And then again, final skill position here, I like Darrell Henderson. I think he's a good cheap play. That's really it. We talked about him already. And then finally, I'm going to spend all my money and play the Browns defense. I don't really want to. Because I'm a Steelers fan. Boy. But Ben is known to throw interceptions. What about Atlanta? Maybe I go Atlanta just to make myself feel better. Their defense isn't good. Okay. All right, I'm here. I got to win money. I got to do right by the people listening, watching. Let's go. I hope they do bad, but but if they don't, at least I'm kind of hedging here and maybe I make some money. So that's going to do it for our second lineup. Hurts, Carter, Elijah Mitchell, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Laviska Shenault, Dallas Goedert, Darrell Henderson, and then the fucking Browns. And then our third and final matchup here, I'm going to go with a different stack, but it's kind of a combination of the first two. So at quarterback, I'm going Justin Herbert. I get that, again, the matchup probably isn't the greatest against New England, but New England also let the Houston Texans score quite a bit. So New England, 21st against the quarterback. I don't care. They chuck the ball when they need to, and they might need to in this game. So I'm going to go Herbert. And Williams, I think, is a bit pricey, but I think I'm going to go on the other side here and take Keenan Allen. He is, what, $1,200 cheaper? Yeah, $1,200 cheaper, $6,500. He's been getting a pretty decent comparison amount of work. So last week, they were on the bye. Week 6, they both had 5 targets. Week 5, Keenan got 9, Mike Williams got 16. But week 4, Keenan Allen got 11, Mike Williams got 4. I'm pretty sure Mike Williams might have got injured that game. That's a possibility there. Either way, I expect them to spread the ball around quite a bit. And as we've always heard, if Bill is going to take away your number one option, who might be Mike Williams, Keenan should be open. At least that's what we're going to say in theory. So my stack is going to be Herbert and Keenan Allen. And then running backs, we're just going to bring it back. I keep throwing these guys in there because I think they're good value plays. So Eli, Mitchell, and Michael Carter in at the running back position. And then I'm also going to put in LaVisca. Already talked about him. So like I said, this one's kind of a combination of the last two we just talked about. And finally, because we're getting some value, I'm going to spend up here on the final wide receiver and go Cooper Kupp. Now, they might not have to pass the ball nearly as much against Houston, but I think they'll pass the ball enough. Cooper can get some touchdowns here. Let's just read these insane stats for Cooper Kupp. So, past 4 weeks, 13 targets, 12 targets, 10 targets, 13 targets. Man. Last week, he played every offensive snap, so that's impressive. He has not played under 80% of the snaps. You wouldn't think so with a wide receiver one. And then if we're looking at target share, my lord. All right, so week 7, he got 31.7, and just for comparison, Robert Woods got 14.6. And then week 6, he got 40% target share. Robert Woods got 16.7. Week 5, it actually flipped, 28.57, and then Woods got 40%. So he's averaging 33.75% of the target share. Matthew Stafford loves him. That, you know the deal. And if we're paying up, we expect good things from him. And it's there. It's definitely there. Then for the tight end position, I'm going to go with Ricky Seals-Jones, $3,800. Washington has been kind of all over the place in terms of who they're throwing the ball to. But for a tight end, you don't want to, I don't know. I know I kind of spent up before, but $3,800 isn't terrible. He got about 20% of the targets last week, 15 the week before, and then 20 in week 5. So he's getting thrown to, and the only targets in the passing game are Terry McLaurin and Ricky Seals-Jones. Heineke really isn't throwing to anyone else, including J.D. McKissick. Now, J.D. McKissick had 16.67% of the targets last week, and then a astounding 25.64 in week 6. But that hasn't been the case really most of the season. It's really been McLaurin and Seals-Jones getting these targets. Give me the opportunities. I'll take Seals-Jones. Maybe he pops one in for a touchdown. And then we talked about him, but I'm going back to Chuba. If I could spell his name, Chuba. Chuba Hubbard. There he is. We talked about him already. Good matchup. Should be a decently high-scoring game as well, I believe. Let me check out the line on that really quickly. Carolina, Atlanta, the line is at 46.5. So I think that feels low. I might take that over. That feels low for me. I don't think either of these defenses are really good. Atlanta for sure. Carolina was supposed to be good, but they haven't been great the past few weeks. So might take a shot on the over there. And then we're just going to finish it out. I'm going to go with who we got. Do we want Jacksonville against Seattle? Nah. I'll just take the Washington football team here. Not a ton of reason behind this one. It was just kind of out of who was available. I was like, okay, who has the biggest opportunity to like get a pick six or something like that. It might be the Jaguars, honestly, against Geno, but they're cheap. I'll take them here. That'll do it. Those are going to be our 3 free Millionaire Maker lineups. Again, pop them into any tournament you want. That's what they're kind of built for. Cash lineups, probably not, because we have some kind of dart throws here with like Michael Carter and Laviska Shenault. Might not want to do that for cash lineups, but for any tournament, I think these are okay to throw in here. So these are the 3 that we're giving away for free. You can find them on our website, and then in the near future, we have a mobile app coming out on iOS where you can look at, of course, these 3 lineups that we're giving you, and then you watch a quick, 15 to 30 second ad. We'll give you another lineup up to 20 lineups. So there's going to be a lot more chances if you want to get these free lineups. If you're new to DFS, this is a great way to kind of figure out how you want to construct lineups on your own. And it's always fun to kind of follow along. Again, if you don't have the money or are brand new to this, go to the beginner contests. Those are only for beginners. So people with new accounts, haven't won a lot of money, haven't entered a lot of contests, play against those. You'll have a better chance of winning, and you're up against people at the same skill level. Another thing you can do is play some free contests. Sadly, you don't win money from that, obviously. But there are some free contests where you can. They'll have like a little amount of prizes. You usually have to be in the top like 10% or something like that to get paid out for these free ones. But screw around in those. It's always fun. It's a great way to easily follow along. We also have a league on DraftKings if you want to join. We don't do anything paid, but if you just want to join the group, go ahead and do it. And we'll see you there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.